The brothers began collecting old books, tracts, calendars, newspapers, and manuscripts, wrote about medieval literature, and even debated with formidable professors and researchers of old Germanic and Nordic texts by writing contentious essays and editing scholarly collections of ancient sagas and legends. They made a brotherly pact to remain and work together for the rest of their lives. And together they cultivated a passion for recovering the true nature of the German people through their so-called natural poetic, the term that the Grimms often used to describe the formidable ancient Germanic and Nordic literature. Still think they're just fairy tales? Hi, welcome back to Far From Eden. I was just talking about the Grimm brothers. Most of our society, sadly, will just say, oh, the guys who wrote the fairy tales, oh yeah, I heard that their original ones are pretty gruesome. That's all they know. These tales have been lost, and they're even scoffed at. We had somebody in the chat last night, and we weren't even doing our fairy tales. We had somebody in the chat last night talking about, just sitting around having stories read to men. It's not what we're doing. We're doing literary archaeology. We are looking at these stories that these men dedicated their lives to try to save their culture, to save Western culture. And that was in the early 1800s. They had extreme foresight. And what we've all learned going through these tales is that there is so much truth. So much truth. There's a reason that these fairy tales have fallen by the wayside. If they hadn't, if we'd kept them, would we have kept our culture? Would society look very different? I think so. So let's get into it. What will we learn about our past today? What will we learn about what everyone accepted as truth? Simple things that now, apparently, we need executive orders to say men, women, nothing else. Really? And fairy tales are silly? I think right now is pretty silly what's going on. This next one's called Godfather Death. Once upon a time, there was a poor man who already had 12 children when the 13th was born. Since he was at his wit's end and in such distress, he ran into the forest where he encountered our dear Lord, who said to him, I feel sorry for you, my poor man. I shall stand sponsor to your child at the baptism and take care of him so that he'll live happily on this earth. Upon saying this, the Lord left him standing there and moved on. Soon thereafter, the poor man encountered death, who likewise spoke to him and said, I want to be your godfather and stand sponsor to your child. If he has me as his friend, he will never be in need. I'll make him into a doctor. Uh-oh. And right here we already have, of course this would be in a tale. It's not even a question that there is a creator, right? That it was just accepted. And that is something that we see in all of these tales, is it's just not debatable. I'm satisfied with what you say, said the man. You don't make a difference between rich and poor when you fetch them. Tomorrow is Sunday. My son will be baptized. Just show up at the right time. Uh-oh. The next morning, death came and held the child during the baptism. After the child had grown up, death came once again and took his godson into the forest. Now you are to become a doctor, and you only have to pay attention to what I say. When you are called to a sick person and you see me standing at his head, it is a sign that I won't take him. Let him smell the vapors of this bottle and rub the salve on his feet. Then he'll become well again. However, if I stand at his feet, then it's all over, and I'll take him. Don't try to cure him." Upon saying this, Death gave him the bottle, and the young man became a famous doctor. He only had to take a look at the sick person, and he knew in advance whether the person would become well again or had to die. One time, he was called to the king, who was lying in bed because of a serious illness. When the doctor entered the room, he saw Death standing at the king's feet, and so the vapors of the bottle could not be of any help. Nevertheless, he had an urge to deceive Death. So he grabbed hold of the king and turned him around so that Death stood at his head. The change succeeded, and the king became well again. However, when the doctor returned home, Death came to him, gave him some fierce looks, and said, "If you dare trick me another time, I'll twist your head off." Wow. So if I were reading this to children, because this would be an excellent way to teach your children what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is evil, and how the world is, and that those things exist. I'm not sure, actually, I know children have not been raised for a long time to understand that evil exists. And I think, obviously, that's one of the greatest tricks the devil ever pulled off in the world. I'm messing up the quote, but is to convince the world that he doesn't exist. He very much does. Let's see how well it turned out that this is the Godfather that this man chose. And notice it is the 13th child. I know numbers are a little interesting. If you watch the news, you'll start to notice 13 pops up a lot. You're like, I don't know if this might be a psyop. Yeah, do psyops and fairy tales have anything to do with each other? Yeah, because human beings think in narratives. We think in narratives. That's how they propagandize us. All right. Soon thereafter, the king's beautiful daughter became sick, and nobody in the world could help her. The king wept day and night. Finally, he announced that whoever cured her would have her as his reward and marry her. So the doctor came and saw Death standing at the feet of the princess. Since he was completely enchanted by her beauty, however, he forgot all of Death's warnings. Turned the princess around, let her smell the vapors of the bottle, and rubbed the soles of her feet with the salve. No sooner did he return home than Death stood there with a horrible look on his face. Then he seized his godson and carried him to an underground cave where 1,000 candles were burning. "Take a look," Death said. "These are the candles of the living, and this light over here that's only burning a little, this is your life. Watch out." Yeah. So, couple things. The devil's money is the devil's money is easy money, and it doesn't end well. The doctor was famous, he was rich, all these things. But at the end of the day, it's not going to turn out well. Either now or in the next life. It's not, you don't want to go that way. The second thing is, of course, he was enchanted by her beauty. So he did the thing that ended him. He was so enchanted by her beauty, he lost all logic and reason, and he made a decision that was his demise. Once again, we have a story where a man let the beauty of a woman, the influence of a woman, cloud his mind, cloud his judgment, and it really ended up badly for him. Think of the different decisions you might have made had you been learning these things growing up. Had you been learning that, oh my goodness, I can become completely enraptured and captivated by the beauty of a woman, that it'll muddy the way I think. And you have to watch out for that. And I don't think anybody told men that. And this woman didn't even, manipulate him. We don't know. She may have flipped her hair and whatever. But, you cannot let that happen. You have to be guarded. And I don't think anybody taught men to be guarded. And if they had, they wouldn't have followed women straight to their demise. And that demise doesn't look like, death pointing to a candle and, saying this, that, and the other. But it might point to family court. Might point to the horrible ache in your heart that your children don't know you, or don't, who they hold you responsible. They're alienated from you. Like, yep. So many of the fairy tales. This is a giant warning to men. Giant warning to men. And I would say a cautionary tale for women too. Like, don't be like that. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to. If you're a good woman, you wouldn't want to cause a man to make decisions that lead to his demise. You wouldn't want to do that. That's evil, right? That would be manipulation. And that's more like the myths of like a nymph and things like that, and a siren. And in those, you're warned against them too. Danger. All right, this is the next one. The Wandering of Thumbling, the tailor's son. A tailor had a son who was small, not much larger than a thumb. Therefore, he was called Thumbling. However, he was filled with courage and said to his father, "Father, I want to go out wandering." "Fine with me, son, my son." And the old man and he took a darning needle and put a lump of sealing wax on it in the light. "Now you'll also have a dagger to take with you on your way." See, this is why people think these tales are so silly, because of sort of the fantastic descriptions and characters. But when you get down to it, the morals and the truth, they're all right there. And for some reason, the way they're told is just very powerful. I don't know if it's because it ignites our imagination or forces us, because it's so fantastical, it forces us to see outside of ourselves. Maybe that's what it is. You guys tell me what you think, because I know you enjoy this as much as I do, and the truth we get from them. So now he's got a dagger because he's got the needle. The little tailor set out into the world, and his first work was with the master tailor, but the food wasn't good enough. "Mistress," Thumbling said to the master's wife, "if you don't give us better food, I'll take some chalk tomorrow and write 'too many potatoes, too little meat' on the house door, and then I shall leave." Well, he's pretty demanding. Okay. It's a little rude, right? That's your hostess. "What do you want, you little grasshopper?" replied the wife, who became angry, grabbed a washcloth, and wanted to beat him with it. However, my little tailor crawled quickly under the thimble, looked out from beneath it, and stuck out his tongue. She picked up the thimble, but Thumbling hopped into a bunch of washcloths, and as the wife began separating the washcloths to search for him, he crawled into a crack in the table. "Hey, hey, my lady," he cried out and raised his head from the crack. As soon as the tailor's wife tried to hit him, he jumped into the drawers until she finally caught him and chased him out of the house. I mean, when you're a guest and you have the opportunity to work for a master tailor, I don't know that you really should be complaining about the food. But I also don't know that she needed to start to become violent. Now the little tailor continued wandering and came to a large forest, where he met a band of robbers who wanted to steal the king's treasure. When they saw the little tailor, they thought he could be of great help to them. So they spoke to Thumbling and said that he was a good and able fellow, and that he should come along with them to the treasure chamber, crawl inside, and throw the money outside to them. Notice they first complimented him. You have to beware of flattery. Beware of flattery. And I would say for you men, that is a tactic women use. So be careful when they flatter you or what have you. They know that might work to gain your resources in one way or another. So just watch out for that. So they told me he was a good and able fellow. And of course, he's little, so he's probably like, yes, I am. Thumbling agreed. So he went to the treasure chamber and examined the door to see if there was a crack in it. Fortunately, he soon found one and wanted to climb through it. But one of the guards said to his companion, "Look at that nasty spider crawling over there. I'm going to stamp on it until I kill it." "Hey, leave the spider alone," the other guard said. "It's done nothing to you." This was how Thumbling fortunately made his way into the treasure chamber. Then he went to the window where the robbers were standing outside, and he threw one coin after another out the window. When the king examined his treasure chamber later, there was so much money missing that nobody would understand how it had been stolen because all the locks had been well protected. The king called for more guards, who heard something rattling in the coins. They went inside and wanted to grab hold of the thief, but the little tailor sat down in the corner beneath the coin and cried out, "Here I am!" The guards ran over there while Thumbling leaped to another corner, and when they were at the first corner, he cried out, "Here I am!" The guards ran to the next corner, and Thumbling hopped to another corner once again and cried out, "Here I am!" This way, he kept making fools out of them and kept doing this until they became tired and left the chamber. Now Thumbling gradually threw all the coins through the window. How are they not seeing the coins? I don't know. That's not important. Sometimes you don't want to get wrapped up in the little details like that because you miss the truth it's trying to teach us. He sat himself down on the last one and went flying through the window. The robbers gave him tremendous praise and would have made him the captain if he had wanted that. Then they divided the loot, but Thumbling wouldn't take more than one coin because he couldn't carry more than that. Afterward, he resumed walking, and finally, since he was not having much success with tailoring, he hired himself out as a servant at an inn. However, the maids weren't fond of him because he saw everything they did in secret without their noticing it. Okay, so he's spying on the maids. I want to know what they were doing. Then he reported them afterward. As a result, they wanted very much to play a prank on him. So one time, when he went for a walk in the meadow, where a maid was mowing the grass, she mowed him together with the grass and threw the grass and Thumbling to the cows when she returned home. That doesn't sound like a prank. It's a bit more than a prank. Then the black cow swallowed Thumbling, and he was now cooped up inside the cow and heard that evening that the cow was to be slaughtered. Great. Since his life was in danger, he cried out, "I'm here." This one's going all over the place. I I don't think he should have complained when he was at the master tailor's that they were too many potatoes. But we'll see, because Grimm Brothers is taking us somewhere, and we keep digging. This is literary archaeology. Where are you? I'm the black cow, in the black cow. However, the people couldn't understand him, and the cow was slaughtered. Fortunately, he wasn't struck by the blows to the cow and became mixed with the sausage meat. Ugh. When this meat was about to be chopped up, he cried out, "Don't chop too deeply, don't chop too deeply. I'm stuck beneath the meat." Because of, is this like Jonah and the whale? Since I don't know, you guys will see. You guys will be pointing out stories from scripture that it reminds you of, and that helps so much. That's why we're all in the chat together when this premieres. Because of all the noise, however, nobody heard him. So Thumbling jumped quickly between the chopping knives, avoiding any harm. But he couldn't get completely away and was stuffed into a blood sausage that was hung to the chimney to be smoked until winter, when the sausage was to be eaten. Well, when his lodging was eventually sliced open, he jumped out and ran away. Now the little tailor wandered again. However, a fox came across his path and snatched him. "Mr. Fox," Thumbling cried, "you've got me. Let me go." "All right," said the fox. "Since there's not very much of you, I'll let you go if you get your father to give me all the hens in the chicken yard." So Thumbling swore that he'd do this, and the fox carried him to his home and was given all the hens in the chicken yard. Meanwhile, the little tailor brought his father the one coin that he had earned from all his wanderings. But why did the fox get all the poor little hens to eat? "Oh, you fool, a father certainly loves his child more than he does his hens." All right, let's talk about this. That's the prodigal son. This Thumbling, he wanted to wander. He wanted to wander, and he did. And he wandered, and he made a lot of bad decisions. His father let him. His father let him wander, and he kept choosing, I don't know, misbehaving. If I was talking to little children, he was rude to the mistress, the one that was feeding dinner, saying too many potatoes, not enough meat. It's like, hey, you're getting an opportunity to work with a master tailor, and he squandered that. And he went from one thing to another, and he ended up needing to return home. And as his father said, "You're worth more to me than all the hens," because if that's what a father does. That's what our Father. That's a mirror. That's a mirror of our Lord. And that would be fantastic to be teaching that to children. Does that remind you of any of our stories that we've read from the Bible? You know what I mean? But it just keeps reinforcing. It's reinforcing the patriarchy, right? People just don't understand what that word is, what that means anymore. It's a good thing. It's the natural order of things. It's what communism wants to disrupt. It's what feminism wants to disrupt and take down. Because they look at it as if it's bad. They look at it as if it's oppressive. And the acknowledgement of it as God's order is what has ordered the West. It is what has made the family the bedrock of Western society. And it's why when you take that away, things fall apart. It is just true. And that's been the goal. And that's another reason these are kind of hidden from society. They have crammed other fairy tales down our throats. We call them movies and television shows. And people watch Netflix for hours and hours. Used to go to movies more, and, stuff themselves with popcorn. I used to partake of all of the propaganda, basically, because you see those narratives and it teaches you archetypes. And if you notice, we, especially women, we construct our realities around who's the villain, who's the victim, who's the hero. And it's very this way. And it's why it's easy for us to say, oh, between these two countries, this is the bad guy and this is the good guy. So we're going to vote to, you see what I mean? And it's like, maybe they're both bad guys. And maybe it's none of our business. You see what I'm saying? But this is how they get you. They get you through narratives. And that's why they made these ones go away. This is exactly why the Grimm brothers were bringing them forth and made it their whole life's purpose to do that. Because they cared more about something greater, about something bigger than themselves. They wanted to plant a tree under which they would never have shade. They wanted to build something, protect something. And that, I think, is the best thing you can do, right? A lot of the reason why men in particular are depressed and taking the permanent solution, so to speak, is because their sense of purpose and understanding the meaning of life is just not there. It has to be cultivated. It has to be taught to you when you're younger. You can learn it when you're older, but it's so much better when we grow up knowing these things. So we don't just listen to what the state wants us to believe. And we don't just listen to what women say reality is because of feelings. Funny that the truth is in fairy tales. All right, one more. Fitcher's bird. Okay. Fitcher's bird. Why not? Why not? It's Sunday. This is what we do. Fitcher's bird. Once upon a time, there was a sorcerer. Well, that's not good. Unlike in today's very secular, godless society, when we hear sorcerer, we need to think that's an evil person, right? But with Harry Potter and all of this normalization of magic and stuff, we are taught as a society not to look at that as a bad thing or an evil thing. Look at how witchcraft and being a witch and all that sort of thing is like mainstream now. Women are they're like proud of it. It's not good. It's not good. It's way more evil than most people think, because again, they're like, oh, evil's not real, or that's not evil. Once upon a time, there was a sorcerer who was a thief, and he tried to go begging from house to house in the guise of a beggar. One time, a maiden opened the door and gave him a piece of bread. He only had to touch her to force her to jump into his basket. Then he carried her off to his house, where everything was splendid inside, and he gave her whatever she desired. All right. Sometime later, he said to her, I have some business to attend to outside the house, and so I must take a trip. Here is an egg. Take good care of it and carry it with you wherever you go. I'm also giving you a key, and if you value your life, don't go into the room that it opens. Nevertheless, when he was gone, she went and opened. That did not take long. Oh my God. Nevertheless, when he was gone, she went and opened up this room, and as she entered it, she saw a huge basin in the middle. Okay. Oh my God. Did I just read what I just read? Okay. YouTube doesn't like violence. Here we go. I'm going to start over. Okay, so she opened up this room, and as she entered it, she saw a large basin in the middle with not alive and butchered people lying in it. She was so tremendously horrified that the egg she was carrying plopped into the basin. Oh, for heaven's sakes. To be sure, she quickly took it out and wiped the red stuff that comes out of our bodies off. But that red stuff reappeared instantly. She wiped and scraped, but she couldn't get rid of the stain. She should have obeyed her little hubby there. It would have been a better thing to do. When the man returned from his journey, he demanded the key and the egg. He looked at both of them, and he realized right away that she had been in the red stuff that comes out of your body chamber. That's what it's called. YouTube does not like that word. I'm just trying to read fairy tales, YouTube. You know? Didn't you pay attention to my instructions? He said angrily. Now you'll go back into that chamber against your will. Uh-oh. Upon saying this, he grabbed her, led her into the chamber, chopped her, and tossed her into the basin with the others. Oh my God. This is when you search on Google, what is the scariest or darkest Grimm brother fairy tale? I've never seen this one. It'll always tell you the robber's bride, whatever. Not Fitcher's bird. So she got chopped like the other ones, and into the basin she went. After some time had passed, the man went begging again and captured the second daughter. Oh, heaven's sakes. He took her from the house, and the same thing happened to her. Well, here's the thing. Why are the daughters just answering the door? No. Right? You need to protect them. Where is their father? Where? The patriarchy is a good thing. It protects us. I think a lot of women are starting to realize that, especially in the cities where some not so good people are there trying to do harm, way more than we've ever had before. And a lot of it's because of the way we have voted. Because, those poor people. This poor beggar, right? Oh, he's just looking for a better life. Doesn't need to be answering the door, and he doesn't need to be there. What stops that? Good men. But when you stop good men, this is what happens. So he took her from the house, and the same thing happened to her. She opened the forbidden door, let the egg fall into the red stuff, and was chopped and thrown into the basin. Now the sorcerer wanted to have the third daughter as well. So he captured her and put her into his basket. After he returned home, he gave her the key and the egg before he set out on his journey. However, the third daughter was smart and cunning. She put the egg into a cupboard and then went into the secret chamber. When she found her sisters in the nasty basin, she looked all over the place for their parts and put them all together. Head, body, arms, and legs. So the two sisters came back to life. Then their sister led them out of the chamber and hid them. When the man came home and didn't find any red stains on the egg, he asked the third sister to become his bride. She said yes, but she told him that before she'd marry him, he had to fill his basket full of gold and carry it to her parents on his back. In the meantime, she would make preparations for the wedding. Instead, she stuck her sisters into the basket, covered them with gold, and told them that they were to get help from home. Now carry this basket to my parents, she said to the man, but don't dare to stop and rest along the way. I can see everything from my window. So the man lifted the basket onto his back and went on his way. It was, however, so heavy it was almost crushed by the weight. At one point, he wanted to rest, but one of the sisters immediately cried out from the basket, I see from my window that you're resting. Get a move on at once. Now the woman is bossing him. Do you understand? Like back, this is the early 1800s that this was published. The fact that she'd be like, da, 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 that's like, wow. It's unusual. But he really wants to marry this one rather than, go full Criminal Minds on her. He thought that it was his bride who was crying out, and so he immediately continued walking. Whenever he stopped along the way, he heard a voice and had to keep moving. Back at his place, the bride took a skull, decorated it with jewels, and set it out on the window case. Then she invited the sorcerer's friends to the wedding, and after that was done, she dipped herself into a barrel of honey, cut open a bed, and rolled around in the feathers so that it was impossible to recognize her because she looked so strange. This is how she set out on her way. Soon she met some of the wedding guests who asked, Where are you coming from? Oh, Fitcher's bird? From Fitcher's house, haven't you heard? And what may the young bride be doing there? She swept the whole house from top to bottom. Just now she's looking straight out of the window. Soon thereafter, she met the bridegroom, who was on his return home. Where are you coming from? Oh, Fitcher's bird. From Fitcher's house, haven't you heard? And what may the young bride be doing there? She swept the whole house from top to bottom. Just now she's looking straight out of the window. The bridegroom looked and saw that decorated skull. He thought it was the bride and waved to her. However, once he and his guests were all gathered inside the house, the helpers who were sent by the sisters finally arrived. These people locked all the doors of the house, and then they set fire to it. And since nobody could get out, they were all burned. Well, that had a female hero. It actually had a female hero. The other two sisters, not so smart. This one saved her two sisters and herself, and had some revenge and maybe possibly some justice. There was nobody protecting these daughters. These daughters, just like, okay, Mr. Beggar, okay. And look what happened. It's just, are we going to leave it to the women? Are we going to leave it and hope that they're going to be cunning and they're going to be the heroes? Because it's not usually going to work so well. You know what I mean? We do have our cunning. Our cunning is what we don't have strength, but we have cunning and manipulation. And it's all well and good when it's used on evil. But so often it's used just to our own advantage or our perceived advantage, which is usually, pleasure and comfort and short-sighted things. But so often in these stories, it's, you just can't trust strangers. We used to have communities, we used to have families that knew each other for decades and went back, and that formed, those different families formed community, and outsiders just weren't trusted. And it wasn't because we were a bunch of meanie heads. It was because you don't know who they are. You don't know what their values are. You have no idea what their intentions are. And the other thing that we've learned is that in these fairy tales, discernment has been challenging for women because of those poor people. We have, our compassion becomes toxic. Our empathy is misguided, right? It needs to be channeled to family, community, and serving those things. Otherwise, it gets turned outward and disaster ensues over and over and over again in these fairy tales in different situations. And that's how you eventually lose your culture. The breakdown of community, the breakdown of the family. When you let outsiders in, it's like if you have a glass of pure water and you put in a drop of food coloring, blue food coloring, now you have blue water. You don't have water anymore. It's changed it. And it doesn't mean you hate blue. It just means you wanted clear water. And it might mean you think blue isn't as good, if you get what I'm saying. And I think you do. Because it's not the first time we've found this sort of lesson and truth in these fairy tales. We completely have. It's funny to me that when I'm reading fairy tales, I'm like, oh, these are concepts that the overlords don't like. People would say it's hateful or it's judgmental or it's this, that, or the other. And you're not allowed to be that way. Why? Why don't they want you to be that way? Because it gets in the way of their agenda. And the men see through it more than anybody because they can think without feeling. And it's harder for women to do that. And that's okay. It just has its place where I feel, in my opinion, that it's better served, right? But, who am I? What do I know? Thank you guys for joining me on Fairy Tale Sunday. It's so wonderful. I look forward to it every week. And we're not going to stop. When we run out of Grimm Brothers, there's plenty of literary archaeology out there to celebrate where we come from and who we really still are. We still are these people. We haven't changed. They're trying to make us think that we're not who we are and made by who we're made by in the image of him, right? They want to tell us, no, you have evolved from a single cell organism and you live in a universe and blah, blah, blah. Science, trust the science. No, I trust God. I do. And I trust his truth. And I'm going to go from there. And that feeds my soul. Make sure you feed your soul today and every day. Protect your peace. Nobody else is going to. And I love you guys. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.